to Midlife Catalyst, a place where ordinary people share extraordinary stories. I'm Amanda Younts, and today's guest is someone we're all familiar with and that brought so much to the first episodes when she was on that I was so excited when she released her sleep stories called Snuggle Up and Drift that I wanted to have her on the podcast and share her meditations and her experiences because to me, sleep is so important. So today's guest, you are familiar with, it is Meg Tietz, who is here to talk to us about having better sleep, something we could all benefit from. I hope you enjoy this episode. Back with us today. I knew after the first couple of episodes when she was on that I would have her back. It just was the timing and the topic. And now we're coming back to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is sleep.
Yes. Hi. I'm so glad you're back.
I'm so glad to have you back. And I'm so glad for your new endeavor. That really is something I think so many people experience and struggle with at some point in their life, regardless of age or stage. So let's just talk a little bit about sleep. The reason I am so interested is because I've talked about how I focus on wellness and kind of the 6 pillars of wellness through the lifestyle pyramid that really is the crux for people kind of formulating a healthy lifestyle. It's a proactive, preventative strategy rather than reactive with medicine and so forth. So for me, alcohol obviously is the base of that pyramid. And I've said this repeatedly, when I stopped drinking, my sleep did improve. Like it was pretty magical what that sleep was like. But then once you stable out and hormones and levels of your body, then you kind of come back to, oh, well, I'm still struggling with sleep and at some point. So sleep and physical exercise are really right above. So avoiding that risky substance. And then it is either sleep or physical exercise that I must have to really be a well person.
Yes.
My mood is better. My thought processes are better, all of those things. So they're interchangeable of which one is the next in the level of priority for me. But usually if I am exercising, then my sleep is off.
Right. That's what I was going to say is these are 2 areas that are so interconnected that if we're not getting enough sleep, then we'd often feel too, lethargic to get out and get that exercise. And then if we're not getting that exercise, we find that it's harder to fall asleep and stay asleep. I know, I'm sure you can relate that this became so much more true once I hit midlife, that I'm a person who's never really had problems with sleep before. I've never had insomnia, those types of things. But it was like when midlife really hit, when perimenopause really hit, all of a sudden, I have sleep problems.
Well, and what I kind of went back and did haven't had sleep problems until like the last year. Well, the last year has been pretty chaotic for me. And I'm not in the same bed. And things that are really important to me are like clean sheets, certain routine, all of those kind of things that when you're no longer in control of it, it can interrupt that sleep flow. But also for me, what I found was the reason I hadn't had trouble with sleep up until this last, since July, was because I was literally working from sunup to sundown. So I was mentally and physically so exhausted and fatigued. I had nothing else to do or give by 10 p.m. every day other than sleep. Like I wore myself out so much that I had no problem falling asleep. Well, now that I'm not on that schedule, and I'm kind of trying to decide, is it because I wasn't exhausted from a work schedule? And there is some worry and anxiety about current work. There's always some level of anxiety, the world, life situations, all these things. But then it's also or is this midlife? Because then there are these hot flashes of like, am I sick? Am I dying? Is this COVID? Is it a hot flash? What is this? I have no idea. Normally I run cold natured, and yet here I am sweating into my sheets. So all these things that now I'm like, oh my goodness, Meg has come out and used her beautiful voice, which is just so amazing. With these sleep stories. Meditations, whatever you want to call, you know what you call them, but through Snuggle Up and Drift. So talk about what you have done, because I will say I have used, yoga nidra, some other meditations and previous, and now yours are out there. And I'm like, oh my goodness, two things combined. Meg's beautiful voice and the ocean. I am plugging into this. So let's hear about Snuggle Up and Drift.
Okay, thank you so much. And I just want to make it clear that I am certainly not an expert when it comes to sleep. I am like just right there in the trenches of just living life, and especially in this midlife season. So I am not an expert at all. But as I said, once having sleep disruptions came on my radar because of perimenopause, and not only was I experiencing it, but so many of my friends, my sister, like just people that are also in this phase of life are mentioning, like, it's not just not being able to go to sleep, it's waking up at like 3 and 4 in the morning and then not being able to go back to sleep. And so there's all of these different components. So I'm not an expert by any means. I am just someone in the trenches with you.
We have all of these lived experiences. So that's what we're sharing. We're sharing experiences, and maybe someone can take something from those and find them valuable and helpful, or give and share their own experiences. Because I know I'm always looking for tips of, oh, this essential oil or this pillow. I will even say, you posted about the headband.
Yes, the music cozy.
I had never heard of such. It might have saved a relationship.
Yes.
Like, what is this? This is amazing. Because I hate anything.
Yeah.
Like people that sleep with their watch on to track.
Oh.
That not want anything on. I am very clean sheets, clean face, clean skin, really like nothing.
Absolutely. I found the music cozy, gosh, a while ago, maybe even, I can't, time is so weird. Like, was it during the pandemic? Was it before the pandemic? I don't know. But the music cozy, if you aren't familiar with what Amanda and I are talking about, is a sleep headband. It goes around your head. You could wear it for other things besides sleep, but it has 2 little speakers in it that are flat, and they fit over where your ear is, so that if you do to listen to things while you're falling asleep, whether it is sleep audios, which I like what I have created. Some people like to listen to podcasts. Some people listen to audiobooks. That would drive me crazy because I would be so worried about missing the story. I don't know how people listen to audiobooks to go to sleep, but lots of people like to do that. But basically, you don't have to worry about having a big set of headphones on or your earbuds in. It just makes it so comfortable to cozy up with whatever you wanted to listen to while you fall asleep. So it was a game changer for me, for sure.
Yes, same, because people are like, well, just put in earbuds or to drown out someone snoring. And I'm like, no, those hurt.
Yes.
They're distracting, but this is not. It's very soft and comfortable.
I love it.
I will link that in.
Yeah, they're so great. I want to say they're like $25 or under. I use mine every single night. Like, I have to make sure I keep an eye on the battery on it to make sure that it's like charged up, because it is a big bummer for me if it runs out of charge. Okay, so to talk about Snuggle Up and Drift a little bit, I had the idea. It came to me last summer. So as we talked about on my first conversation with you, I made a really big life change at the end of 2023 with ending my long running podcast, Sort of Awesome. And I found myself in this space of just like, I took a lengthy amount of time really to kind of recover from the creative burnout that I had been experiencing. And by last summer, I was kind of starting to look around and go like, okay, so I feel better. I feel like a person again. What am I supposed to be doing with my life? And I did a meditation that gave you space to really kind of check in with your intuition or, your spirit team, however you want to envision that. And I got a really clear message that what I need to continue to do is to use my voice. And so I just kind of like left it open ended. I did start working as a professional voice artist, and I have done some of that, and that's been really great. It didn't really satisfy the creative itch, though. It's just, getting on a microphone and reading other people's copy and words, and that's fine. And there was some really fun projects I got to work on, but it wasn't creative in any way. And I was missing that creative thing as well. So I kind of tried to just create some space of just like, okay, use my voice. How? I don't know. I'm open. And one day I just like out of the blue, I think I was driving. I wasn't even like in meditation or journaling or anything. It just popped into my head to create these sleep audios. I really don't even know what to call them. I call them sleep audios.
Yeah.
I don't know what category they fit into, but it was a combination of using my voice and then something I always loved hearing and was so meaningful to me when we were creating Sort of Awesome is that people would say, thank you for making Sort of Awesome. I've really felt like you kept me company when I was going through this hard stretch, like when I was sitting with my mother while she received, chemotherapy, or I'm a new mom and I was up a lot with my new baby and I would push play on Sort of Awesome and you really kept me company during that time. So taking that and then also taking the idea of being able to bring comfort to somebody with using my voice, kind of it all fit together to do these sleep audios. And again, I didn't know how to do it, what to do, anything, but I was just like, okay. And I just kind of let the ideas flow in and just decided to keep it open-ended and see where it would take me. Well, I had that idea last summer and I just kind of kept playing with it. And then I'd be like, no, this is stupid. Nobody wants this. And then I'd get really motivated and then I'd be like, no, I should totally do this. Especially when a friend or my sister or somebody would say, I had such a hard time falling asleep last night, or I just keep waking up at 3 and I cannot get back to sleep. Then I would get all motivated again, be like, okay, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. So finally this year, towards after the beginning of the calendar year, I started to think, you know what, I just need to. I got to the point where I almost felt like I was getting this creative block on doing anything else because I knew I needed to work on these sleep audios. And it was like my intuition was not going to let me charge ahead with any new projects until I did the thing it had asked me to do. So I was like, okay, what is this going to look like? So if you want, I can kind of break down because I had like sort of 3 big ideas for this album. So the first category is sort of just your traditional relaxation style of drifting off to sleep. So you mentioned the one with the ocean background, which that was one I started using in my imagination when my oldest, who's now 20, when she was a brand new baby, she did not sleep very well at all. And so I would be up at night feeding her, get back into bed, and my mind would just be racing, thinking about all different kinds of things. And so I would do this relaxation where I would imagine ocean waves coming and kind of as the waves would cover my body from my feet up to my head, that it would pull out tension, that it would pull out stress. And honestly, in those days, I don't think I ever made it past my knees, imagining the waves past my knees, that I would be asleep. But it gave my mind something to focus on. So I took that idea, I put some ocean waves audio in the background, just as that classic relax your body style of going to sleep. The other one that's a more classic one, very classic, that lots of us probably learned when we were kids, kind of plays with the idea of counting sheep, although this is counting backwards from 100, which I had done personally to some success in the past. My problem being is that I would forget what number I was on, and then I would get so distracted and think, oh my gosh, should I start it back over at 90? Because I can't remember if I was on 86 or 85. And so this time as I created it, I was hoping that, just let me guide you in counting backwards from 100. You don't have to keep track of anything. And I wanted to put another component into the counting backwards from 100 as well. Just kind of a mindfulness technique of, as thoughts come to mind, to just let the thoughts just be consumed by whatever number you're on. So if you're on 86 and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot to pay the electricity bill, I got to do that. Then you can just imagine that number, it just swallows it up. And then you can just move on to the next one. So kind of that mindfulness practice of observing the thought, not feeling like you have to cling on to it or respond to the thought, to just observe that it's there and then just let it keep passing on through. And so those two, the ocean waves, the ocean relaxation of your body, and the counting backwards from 100, those were the first ones that I thought of doing, because I was like, okay, I've used these, so maybe other people would find them to be helpful too.
So I have never gotten anything out of the counting backwards or counting.
Really?
Never, ever worked for me. But
Yeah.
I think that's why we give options, because
Yes.
clearly it does for some people.
Yeah. Yes. And I didn't mean for this to be the case when I was making the sleep audios, but I've had several people, a handful of people reach out and say, I personally like to listen to an audiobook when I fall asleep, but my teenager or my elementary child has been using these to go to sleep. And it has been the ocean ones and the counting backwards ones. So maybe there's something like on the younger end that is helpful. So there is another one that, again, speaking of audiobooks, that I know a lot of people like to do is listen to something that just kind of takes you into a story. So again, gives your mind something to do as you're falling asleep. So just for fun, because I love this book, I read the first chapter of Little Women, and I put some crackling fireplace sounds in the background and some sound effects of like turning the page. And again, just thinking, I love for somebody to read to me, and it makes me genuinely so sleepy. And I can remember when I was teaching, when I taught, well, at all ages, because I did my student teaching with seventh graders. And then when I was teaching, I taught juniors and seniors. And sometimes I would read aloud whatever text we were working on to the kids. And I can remember so many times kids just like stretching out on their desks and falling asleep, which was not what I wanted at the time. But it really is relaxing to have somebody read to you. So that's included on there. But the other two that mean a lot to me, and I really like, and I hope that is really working for people, is I did 2 sort of guided visualizations that allow you to imagine kind of traveling through like some woods that you imagine. In each of these 2, like one you travel to like a little cozy cabin that you've built for yourself in the woods, and the other you're in the woods and you settle down next to a flowing stream, the forest. And each of those, I really wanted to emphasize the idea of pulling all of the stress, the problems, the worries, the things that you're thinking about, and gathering them up. And then, like, putting them in a basket, for example, and sending love and compassion and forgiveness and trust, and sending this, your own energy, to these problems, and then trusting that the energy of love, for example, can do some really incredible and unseen work to help us figure out what it is that I need to do in this situation. Or even if it's something on a bigger scale, like on a global scale, how can I send love towards this issue and trust that love will find a way to find a solution or to find comfort? So I I really worked on those after we began this current presidential administration, and rapidly so many things were changing. So many people found themselves with a lot of worries, literal job security, worries for their community, worries for their family, their friends, themselves, just so much that you know how it is right now, Amanda. You cannot turn anywhere without being like, what is happening? And it feels so out of our control. And it wasn't until we got into this administration and all of these things started happening that I had the idea to include this style of guided visualization for sleep meditation, because I know so many of us are, we're crashing out into bed and we want to like relax and go to sleep, but there's so much that's weighing on us, not just in our personal relationship dynamics, but on the global stage. And I wanted people to feel like that little bit of time that you have right before you go to sleep does not have to be consumed with trying to solve the problems of the world or every problem in your life, that we can really guide and direct our own energy, especially of love, compassion, and forgiveness, into creating some solutions in our waking life. So I'm really proud of those 2 tracks because it was something really different for me. And I hope that it's really timely for people as well.
I definitely think it is. I feel more relaxed and centered just listening to you talk about it. It's like freeing, because that's really been a focus for me. Again, you kind of, even going back to education and working with students, it would always be about what can you control? And I'm finding
Yes.
myself having to use some of those same redirection and behavior management techniques with myself, but also with adults. And you're either inserting yourself in something you can't fix or change, you have no control, or you're wasting so much energy and worry that could be better spent somewhere else, that
Yes.
really redirecting and channeling that into something beneficial and helpful and useful for your own
Yes.
life. So I think being able to do this is a way I see it, like the ocean and the river. I release all of those things
Yes.
from the day, and then
Mhm.
start the next day fresh, because you
Right.
have actually gone through that visualization process.
Yes. Yes. And I genuinely believe that that time that we have that we spend right before we're going to sleep really does have the capacity for a lot of power in our cognitive experience of life. That if we can go to sleep in a place of relaxation, or even feeling like you've done something beneficial for yourself or for other people, that really that frees up a lot of what's happening in our subconscious. It might allow us to have better sleep. And also, it's been my experience that it really makes a difference in how I wake up and what my mindset is and what my perspective is, what my experience of the world around me is starting from the time I wake up, as opposed to going to sleep just absolutely tense and worried and upset. Yeah, that it really that little bit of time that we have as we're really drifting off to sleep, which is why it was really important to me to put that even in the title of the album, or the collection of these tracks, is that really that we can use that time as we're drifting off to really have an impact on our waking life as well.
Absolutely. The tension piece, I find for a while I would used to grind, teeth.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I know people that do
Yes.
that. I
Yes, I do.
that and
Yes.
became very cognizant of my body, of
Yes.
what is my face doing, what are my shoulders, what are my
Yes.
hands doing.
Mhm.
It's probably one of the few times I do that, because so
Mhm.
many times, like, I'll get a massage or something and they'll be like, relax. And I'm like, I am relaxed. And they're like, no, you're not. So I live with this constant worry and tension.
Mhm.
Going through that sleep process is the one time a day that I really relax.
Yes. You had mentioned doing like yoga nidra before sleep, and I just want to give a shout out to practicing yoga in general, which I'm not doing a regular practice right now. I should be. I need to get back into it. But one thing I learned from practicing yoga is the ability to check in with yourself during the day and just like, is my face relaxed? I do it so much that even when I'm talking to like my kids and they're like worried and upset about something, or I homeschool 3 of my kids. And if they're working on like math, for example, I'd be like, okay, step 1, I want you to relax your face, because you could just see the tension. But I do it with myself, checking in with myself. Am I holding tension, especially, in my forehead between my eyebrows? Or for me, I'll have my shoulders hiked up. And I'll just be doing something completely mundane, like doing dishes or something, and I'll notice that my shoulders are all hiked up. And that was something that the practice of yoga taught me, was to check in with myself, especially those tension areas, and be like, okay, why am I all tense? Why am I have my shoulders up to my earlobes right now? And just being able to, in that moment, relax. And it's something we can take into that time before we go to sleep as well, as we're checking in with our body and releasing tension from each part of our body as well.
Yes. So another thing that's super important for me going for sleep is, I call it like a nightstand audit. What is
Ooh.
on your nightstand?
Yes. Okay, say more. I want to hear all about this.
I tend to I do hang on to clutter and trinkets and things.
Yes, if you can see my nightstand right now, it needs an audit real bad, Amanda.
Right? I just hidden all the things from the camera.
Yeah.
Very much in line with I need everything clean. I need my nightstand clean. So that's
Mhm.
kind of the one area that does not get cluttered for me. It
Mm.
is literally always a glass of water, a lamp, a book, and I do a lip mask and hand, feet for
Yeah.
bed. And so those things are in the drawer. But would I talk to people and I'm like, show me what's on your nightstand when we're talking about sleep being an issue. And it's like all of these things. Well, let's start there.
Like I'm looking at mine right now and it's chaos over here.
Yeah, declutter to get ready for clean sleep. So
Yes.
and then which usually goes into and the cell phone and charging and all of the electronic devices, TV, remote, those kind of things.
Yes.
And pretty good about not scrolling before bed. I would say I'm worse about in the morning waking and scrolling
Yes.
because before it's time to approach the world more than scrolling before bed. Typically, I'm a reader. I don't know.
That's so good.
I found, because you know what, it's my season with basketball and some of these games are on later and then I'm watching and then I can't fall asleep and it's like, oh, because you're watching TV till 11 p.m. for games.
Yes.
So I really see those patterns.
Oh, yes. And speaking of patterns, I wanted to say this. It just popped into my head. One thing I've noticed is for me, if I am getting in bed and scrolling for like a long time, oftentimes it does indicate it's a pattern trying to get my attention that my daytimes, I'm not paying attention to myself enough during the day. And what I mean is, have you ever heard of it? It's kind of become a popular phrase. I think I first heard of it during the pandemic, but revenge bedtime procrastination.
I've not.
Okay, this is such a fascinating concept. I learned about it during the pandemic. Again, it's called revenge bedtime procrastination because it was during the pandemic that many adults, especially parents, were at home. If you think back to like 2020, 2021, a lot of us were at home trying to do our jobs from home and having kids at home. And everybody was home. There was no time or space for yourself. And not to mention the enduring the stress of a global pandemic. And so a lot of people would find that they were getting on TikTok or Instagram or whatever their app of choice was and staying up super late because it felt like this is the only time I have for me. And it doesn't even have to be scrolling. It could also be like, I took up a new hobby and now I'm knitting until 1 a.m. Like it doesn't even have to be being on a screen, but it would be almost like a feeling of like, I have no time during the day. This is my time for me. And we're sacrificing our sleep for it. It actually, if I am remembering correctly, the first studies and kind of where this phenomenon got its name came from workers in China who have extremely long work days and very little time. And especially at the time when this sort of phenomenon was being studied and talked about, really, really long work days, long commutes, very little time for themselves. And so again, it's like the revenge idea comes in. You think you're, you think you're like showing that you're seeking revenge on these forces outside of yourself that don't allow for you to have any time for yourself to do anything nice or comforting or interesting or creative for yourself during the day. And so you take revenge by staying up late. I'm still going to do it. But then of course, over time, it really does. Procrastinating that bedtime later and sacrificing sleep, it does catch up with you. But all of that to say, I have noticed for myself on the nights that I will get into bed and I'll, open TikTok, it's my weakness and I'm scrolling and it's like an hour later, that is like such a red flag to myself of like, hey, what's going on during the day that's making you feel like, because it's not even, it's just mindless stuff. But it's like entertainment. It's stuff that's just for me. My TikTok algorithm is geared just to things that I like and I find interesting and it's fun for me. And so it feels like this indulgence and it can really stretch on. And it's a pattern, like you said, it's a pattern that reflects back to me. We need to fix something in the daytime that allows you to feel like you do have time for something that's just for you, that makes you laugh, that is entertaining to you, that is thought-provoking to you. Find a space in the day for that so that you don't feel like at bedtime you have to fill up that space that has been kind of emptied out during the day.
That is so interesting. I'm so interested in procrastination right now. I'm in the middle of perfectionism procrastination, but now I'm like, this is interesting. Am I doing some of this? What I find is I have more right now punishment. I beat myself up in that I didn't accomplish enough today. I wasn't productive enough. I didn't do enough as I'm winding down.
Yeah.
that go, which is why it's super, I think the gratitude practice of looking back on the day, couple of
Yes.
things that I accomplished, what I'm grateful for, so that I can do that inventory and be like, you did enough, go to sleep.
Yes, I think that that's so real. And I do think the perfectionism part of that that's such a big component of that perfectionism, punishment, procrastination cycle. They just kind of all feed each other.
And then they weigh on the sleep, obviously, because it will either keep you up or wake you up, one or the other. So sleep is definitely one of my non-negotiables. Like it is, and I know I am very operationalized of it needs to be 7 to 9 hours consecutively, dark, the conditions around it. And then people look at me like, I don't give it that much thought. I just lay down and I'm like, oh no, I give it so much thought. And I'm always looking for pillow sprays or, something new lotion or potion or something to just make it that much more relaxing. Do you have any of those rituals?
Oh, absolutely. I am very big on the sensory experience of going to bed. I am a pretty highly sensitive person. Sensory things. Sometimes we think about being highly sensitive in the negative context, and that things like having the overhead light on, just drives me crazy. Or, being in a really auditory overstimulating place is so stressful to me. But the good side of it is that because I am so sensory minded, that it is almost like setting up a little treat at the end of the day. For me, it starts with making my bed. I know various people have various, thoughts and whatever on making your bed. But to me, that when I'm making the bed in the morning, that's like one little gift I give to nighttime Meg. Daytime Meg is like, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to make sure this bed is nice and neat. And so at the end of the day, like you said, clean sheets, especially fresh linen day, is so wonderful. But I love a linen spray. I also keep on my bedstand, like my very favorite lip product for night is just the Trader Joe's vanilla lip mask, which I have right here. I cannot go without this. I love it so much. But yes, a nice lotion that smells good. I even don't have one right now, but from time to time, I've even had specific perfumes like fragrances that I would put on, just like one little spray before I go to bed, usually like a lavender or something that kind of is like the signal to my entire body, to my brain, to all of my senses, like, is sleep time. We are now going to settle in, cozy up. It's time to go to sleep. All of those rituals are so important to me. And I've had to go on a journey myself with the number of hours that I get, because with parenting, it's not always a given. For example, over the weekend, my 5-year-old came down with a tummy bug, as 5-year-olds are prone to do. So starting at like 3:30 in the morning, I was up with him, and I had already stayed up late with my 17-year-old watching a movie. So I got very little sleep. So for me, I have had to, especially in those moments where it's just going to be like a short-term thing, for example, a sick kid or whatever the case may be, I have to like do some self-talk of like, however much sleep I get tonight will be just enough sleep that I need for the day ahead. Because Amanda, I've gone through these absolute crash outs where I start counting the hours of like, oh my gosh, now I'm only going to get 5 hours of sleep, and I got to do this tomorrow, and I'm going to be too tired, and I'm going to be off my game. And it's just like this huge panic spiral. So I've had to teach myself over the years, I don't even know if it does anything or not, but it calms me down in the moment to be able to say, no, I just trust that if I only got 4.5 hours of sleep last night, those 4.5 hours of sleep will be exactly what I need to make it through the next day. I don't recommend that for the long term, but if you're going through a short term thing where your sleep is really disrupted, that being able to do some self-talk, a little bit of self-cognitive behavioral therapy to fix your thinking about your sleep can really go a long way too.
Absolutely. No, when those things start happening of that, well, now I'm only going to get 5 hours. The first things that happen are I change my alarm so that I don't get up for an early morning meeting or to exercise. Like we said, the physical exercise and sleep go hand in hand.
Yes,
I don't get the sleep. Exercise is the first thing I throw out the window, because you can't throw out sick kids or family or work. So it's the first thing. And then usually the second is it impacts my nutrition of when I'm
Yes.
tired
Oh,
and I
yeah.
fuel up on the coffee and then I make poor eating decisions. It's just so cyclical.
Yeah. Well, the eating choices for me, when I haven't gotten enough sleep, it's instantly sugar. Like all I can think about. I'm not even really a big sugar person, but if I am not getting enough sleep, again, it's one of those signals my body gives me is just that sugar craving. Forget it. And then I'll eat the sugar and then I feel crappy. And that doesn't do anything. But I do recognize it now of like, okay, I know why this is happening. Maybe I'll have a little dessert, a little this or that, just to satisfy the craving, but not going crazily overboard, which is what my body will kind of wants to do when I'm sleep deprived.
Absolutely. Yes. And then it just takes so long to get out of that cycle that your awareness of it is something I think people can really take from this. Of it's not just in the evening and here we go. It's throughout the day of that awareness and checking in with yourself.
Yeah, because I do think once we actually let ourselves slow down at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff comes to the surface. So instead of one thing that again, the practice I've learned probably through yoga, I don't know how I came across this, but the practice of instead of turning away from these red flags to really turn towards them and be like, okay, and what are you telling me? What do I need to know? Because if I'm experiencing again, just using the sugar cravings, for example, if all of a sudden I'm having really intense sugar cravings, like stopping and being like, okay, let's talk about this. Why are we having these? And kind of unpack from there instead of just like trying to either cram it down and ignore it or overindulge in it. Like spend just like a minute questioning myself, just check in, like, why is this coming up all of a sudden? Sometimes it's where I am in my cycle and it's just easy enough to go, oh yeah, okay, I'm about to start. No big deal. But yeah, turning towards the red flags as our body starts to wave them instead of ignoring them altogether.
Yes. So I know you're a Severance watcher. Are you a White Lotus watcher?
No.
Do you do anything on, well, let me just say Max HBO?
Well, I think The Pit is on Max, right?
It is.
We just started watching that. We're almost caught up to current on that. I've never watched a single episode of White Lotus, and so many people have asked me about it that I feel like it's there's something about it that people are like, oh, I think you might like that show. I haven't watched it yet.
Introspective and a lot of personality. So I do think you would enjoy them. But it's also beautiful resorts, which is my thing. But one of the lead characters, Walton Goggins, taken off. He's also in The Righteous Gemstones, which is where I love him in that role. But anyway, this just came up because I'm obsessed with all things White Lotus and the show. And so, of course, that's all that's in my feed. That's what's gotten me through the last month. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next week when the last episode airs, but we'll see. Anyway, he too, through the Calm app, is doing a sleep story that he put out. But he said the reason why was because he had a friend who said, you should never ask, how are you doing? Or how was your day? Which, that's one of those, I hate those questions anyway. But how did you sleep? Like that. How was your sleep last night? I don't know. Or some people, I'm not sure I want to ask that. But it was one of those things that he put that sleep is so important to him, which is why he decided to make these audios and kind of thing.
Yeah.
I just thought that question of how did you sleep last night was
I think I must be a little bit more of a sleep obsessive than I realized, because that's literally the first thing I ask every person in my family when I see them in the morning. All of them, from my 5-year-old all the way up to my husband. And sometimes I'll even text my daughter who's at college and just be like, hey, good morning. Did you sleep well last night? So I'm the person in these people's lives that are like, could you please leave me alone for a minute about my sleep? But it is really interesting. I don't know why. I just like to I think it's really interesting to hear, and also kind of is helpful to keep in mind in the context of, like relationship or whatever, of like, oh, they didn't sleep very well last night, and so they might be a little touchy today or whatever. No one ever asks me how I slept.
I think anyone's ever asked me that. So maybe we should start there. Usually they're like, oh, you haven't had your coffee yet. And maybe we should have backed it up before that of why am I needing coffee?
Yeah.
So where can people access your Snuggle Up and Drift?
Okay. Primarily, I would send people to Bandcamp, which is a great platform that many like independent music artists use. I didn't realize the breadth and scope of how many just audio artists use it until I was looking for some sound effects and I found a person's like whole portfolio of sound effects on Bandcamp. I was like, oh, wait a second. Like, this isn't just like the independent singers that I find and love on TikTok that are over here. So I do have it on Bandcamp. I did record it and release it under my professional voice artist name, which is Maggie Cash. Somebody messaged me on Instagram when I was talking about it last week. They're like, where did the recording name come from? Maggie was a nickname amongst my friends when I was in college. And then Cash is a family name on my mom's side. And I just thought those two went really well together. So it's at maggiecash.bandcamp.com, which I'll send you the link, Amanda, if you want to pop it into the show notes. And I do have it set. I didn't know what to do with pricing on it at first. And I didn't know if I wanted to put it on platforms like Spotify and YouTube where people could listen. I kind of am hesitant to do that because I don't want people to have to worry about the experience of ads, like ads interrupting while you're listening or whatever. So I may do that in the future. But for now, I have it on Bandcamp and I have it set basically pay what you want. Bandcamp does let you stream tracks, I think up to 3 times for free, like if you just want to check it out. But then if you want to purchase it, to buy each track is like, it starts at $1. It's just pay whatever you want to. And then if you wanted to buy the whole thing, all of the tracks together, I think it's set at like $5. And again, I just wanted to keep it really approachable for people because again, one of the sort of audiences that I had in mind when I was creating this is people who are going through a lot of chaos and turbulence right now because of how things are just sort of nationally, globally speaking. So I wanted to keep it really accessible. So it's at Bandcamp and super easy to find. I would recommend you can put the Bandcamp app on your phone and listen to it straight from there. But also when you buy the tracks, you can download it and just put it in whatever player you like. Like you can, I listen to some audio tracks that I've saved in my Google Drive and I'll just open that up and play it through Google Drive. It's really easy to do that as well.
Excellent. And you do make a great point of when I start talking about the lifestyle pyramid and these pillars, the pyramid that when I'm talking wellness that I always start with is Maslow's hierarchy, because if we aren't meeting those needs, we're not going to get to the level of wellness that is touted and that we see on Instagram. And I think people overlook that or don't consider it we've got to have basic needs met and people are safe and people have running water and heat and air and those types of things and job security before we can actually get into this self-care, so to speak.
Yes.
But it's super important now, I think, like you said, so many more people are experiencing those financial hardships that, nothing, I'm so glad that, it's affordable and that there's nothing that is a spa day or that is extravagant. You can create that in your own tiny studio apartment. You can create going to the ocean. That's what I love. I can visualize because obviously I can't live at the ocean. It's not it, but you can create that magic wherever you are and bring that to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's that.
Yeah. Well, I want to be respectful of your time and
gosh, this is so fun. I'm so glad we got to talk about this.
I know. And I was just so excited when you came out with this because, like I said, I love your voice anyway. It always soothes and calms me.
Oh, thank you.
Regardless. But now it helps with sleep and is so important.
Yeah. I'm so glad it's been helpful. That means a lot to me.
And anything else that
we talked about this briefly the first time I got to come on your show, but I have really actually been continuing on with Substack, which has been very rewarding. So I am writing my Gemini Wrongs Substack. You can find that at megtietz.substack.com. So that's been really fun too.
And I love it because that's how I find these things that you're doing.
Yes.
And that's how I found your TikTok. I was like, I don't know why I'm not following her on TikTok, but because you wrote about it, I'm like, let's go.
And a lot of what I'm writing about right now over there is inspired by our conversation that we had back in January about changes in faith and all of those types of things. So anyway, I've been inspired by you and all the ways that you're using Substack, and it's been very rewarding for me as well. So it's all very circle.
Well, highly recommend Gemini Wrongs. It's you'll get something out of your Substack.
Oh, thank you.
Thinking and pondering. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on again.
Yeah. It's been great. Yes. Thank you again. I'm always happy to come back anytime.
Thank you for joining the Midlife Catalyst Podcast. I am so grateful to Meg Tietz for joining us again and sharing Snuggle Up and Drift, her sleep meditations that you can find on Bandcamp, along with her writing on Substack at Gemini Wrongs. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to the platform where you watch or listen, leave a like, a comment, a review. Be sure to subscribe and follow the show and pass it on and share with a friend that you think could benefit and who couldn't benefit from improved sleep. I'm grateful to all of the listeners for joining not just this episode, but every episode, and your support of the Midlife Catalyst Podcast, a place where ordinary people share extraordinary stories. I'm Amanda Younts, and remember, AI can do a lot, but it cannot write your story. Be the author of your own narrative.